Welcome to Pop-O-Holics, the show about hot takes, hotter than hot tasty pancakes. I'm doing a lot of gesticulation for our YouTube watchers. I'm your host, Christian, and welcome to the show that you know, both podcast listeners and YouTube watchers. But it's not just me on this gravy train of a pop culture upload. No, I'm joined as always by my two best friends,
Chris Conkling
and Brian Dupree.
And somehow your names got switched. That's because your faces got switched, and I mentally gotta deal with that for YouTube.
That was last month. Face Off.
Yeah, Face Off. That's true. Well, you all have faced off in your positions on the pod screen, and that's messed up everything. All right, we're already off the rails. What is this show that you've stumbled upon? Well, if you stumbled upon it, you're using a very old piece of random website generating software, and I respect you. Cause
it's a throwback.
I did like the stumble.
For real.
Oh man, what simpler times when we browse the web on a computer instead of a smartphone. Well, we're not talking about old tech. No, we're talking all pop culture. This is a weekly upload. All year we do these on Monday. So if you need a daily, not a daily dose,
a weekly.
I mean, you can listen to it once a day. I'd say on day 4, I'm questioning your sanity, but
we have enough episodes for somebody to listen to
true
once a day for several years.
Yeah,
So.
if you want to see a real
That's a plug for the backlog, folks.
Yeah, check out that backlog. You can see us go from like, oh, up and comers, the audio gets better and better, and then pandemic. It's a fun ride. But yeah, on this show we bring you Brian brings us some news, the latest news. He's over here today. He brings us latest news in Brian's Wacky News Corner. We talk about what we've been consuming in the world of pop culture. And then Chris gives us that community feedback, of which you can give us feedback at Pop-O-Holicscast@gmail.com, against Pop-O-Holicscast@gmail.com. Link in the show notes or the YouTube video description for links to our email as well as our social media. Subscribe to the podcast, all that stuff. So, without further ado, a joke will make
That's
sense.
a reference to a joke off mic.
No, but that joke will make sense in the future. I promise you, loyal listener. Stay with me, baby bird. Sorry, as I always say, with the thanks but never. But let's start the way that we always do, which is with Brian's Wacky News Corner.
Start on wacky, start on wacky. Welcome back, everyone. So a social media post was put out that had a photo of the script for the sequel to Todd Phillips' Joker from 2019, as well as Joaquin Phoenix reading the said script. It had been announced that, this had been in the works nearly directly after Joker did so well at the box office. It's been talked about for a while. There's a tentative title here, Folie à Deux, which apologies about pronunciation. This is a medical term for a mental disorder that affects 2 or more individuals. This seems like something that's very much a temporary title, and I kind of hope it's not the final title. It seems a little bit maybe on the nose. Joker obviously did
on the clown nose, am I right, Brian?
On the big red nose. Yes. Joaquin Phoenix got a Best Actor win for this at the Oscars. The score also won Best Score. Hildur Gudnadottir. Apologies about pronunciation there. It also seems like the type of movie that very much doesn't need any sort of sequel.
Definitely not.
I think it works well. I think we all were decently pretty hot on that movie when it came out. We had a good time with it, but it's not something that screams sequel, especially with how it ends. So how do you guys feel about this new project becoming more concrete?
It's more of a question. It doesn't scream. It inquires. It's a sequel? Chris, what do you think, being the resident Batman super fan?
I agree with you, Brian, that I don't think Joker is necessarily in need of a sequel. It takes place outside of a larger DC film continuity. So it's not... I wasn't clamoring to get a sequel to this film, to be perfectly honest. But the title does interest me. Considering what you just said, Folie à Deux, or as Google pronounces it, Folie à Deux, is kind of like a mental illness that affects multiple people. It makes me question, are we going to get Harley Quinn in this movie? Considering that she's also as crazy as Joker is. But then, when I think that, I don't necessarily think there are a lot of DC characters that surround the Joker that will fit into the mold that Todd Phillips has made for this particular film. So I'm cautious, but I am very interested to see what they're going to do. Joaquin Phoenix said in most of the press when the first movie came out that he really wasn't interested in doing a sequel. So that leads me to believe that either Warner Brothers has backed up a huge dump truck of money to Joaquin Phoenix's house, or the script is so good that he feels as though he can't pass it up. I prefer it be the latter, because that means we're going to get a really quality product. But the whole thing's very interesting to me.
I do want to say this is co-written with his collaborator, Scott Silver, as well. So, yeah, I'm hopeful as well that, like you said, he came around on the script. They really have a great idea that can fit within this vibe. Joker very much influenced by early Martin Scorsese, couple movies in particular. But yeah, Christian, do you have any strong feelings one way or the other about this?
One word, Chris, fixes it all. Multiverse. I know it sounds bold to bring it to the big screen. No, I like to think it's a cross between the two ideas that you had, the dump truck and the money in the script. I want to imagine that they brought a dump truck of scripts to Joaquin Phoenix.
Many ideas.
And he got to pass through them all and select his
pick the best one that he liked.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I know that a lot of fans are like, oh, make this Joker meet the new Robert Pattinson Joker.
He has to meet the Robert
Pattinson Joker, even though they basically showed the Joker played by that other actor. So that's probably not going to happen. I'm interested. I'm cautiously optimistic, as I say a lot on this show. I'm surprised at how good the Joker was, but it was a divisive flick. So no, I think if they zig when people think they're going to zag, go for it. So I'm optimistic. I don't think it's a home run. I'm worried, but we'll see. I'll give him the benefit.
How far? The real question is how far can you actually go with the character of Joker before introducing the Batman? Because really, it's the juxtaposition of the two that makes both so interesting, in my opinion. Yes, the first Joker film was great on its own merits. It was great kind of seeing the character of Joker develop. But now that we see that Arthur Fleck is fully there, he has manifested this Joker character, and that was part of the journey in the first film. Where do you go from here without Batman?
Well, the first one was an origin story. Right. Yeah, no, I agree. What's a world where Joker exists where there is no Batman? I do think it's an interesting question. So we'll see.
We're going to find out.
Yeah, so that is the sequel to 2019's Joker that now has a script, and obviously Joaquin Phoenix signed on to play this character, Arthur Fleck, once again. All right, some big news for Ghostbusters fans. This is the sort of news that is so back to back to back that seems like one of these things where not all of this is going to happen, maybe, but hopefully most of it does.
It was Ghostbusters Day, Brian. They had to drop the Ghostbusters bomb of announcements.
Threw it at the wall. I went straight through. Ectoplasm remained. We have news of an animated feature film that's coming, as well as the sequel to Afterlife, which has been confirmed to be back in New York City. So more nostalgia from the original series. Obviously, the new animated film is, quote, based on Ghostbusters IP, being developed by Jason Reitman and Gil Keenan. We have Chris Prynoski, who is the executive producer on Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe, which is something that may be out now, got cut from news last week. And Jennifer Kluska of Hotel Transylvania, Transformania, who are set to direct, as well as Brenda Zhu on board to write this one. We also, the day before, got news of an animated series that is going to be the third Ghostbusters animated series that's been done before, also produced by Reitman and Keenan. So we have a bunch of news here. Chris, how are you feeling about this? Which of these projects are you most excited for? I know you told us off mic you did just watch Ghostbusters Afterlife finally.
Finally got around to it. I'm a terrible Ghostbusters fan. Ghostbusters is one of my favorite films of all time. I typically watch it once a year around Halloween. And it just took me so long to get to Ghostbusters Afterlife, mostly because of the pandemic. But I had purchased it the day that it was released on VOD, and now months later, I finally got around to watching it. I really enjoyed that movie. There was a lot of fan service with the film, but there was a ton of Reitman isms within it, being made by his son, and it was just a really fun ride. So the fact that we're getting a sequel, it's now set in New York City. There were a couple of post-credits scenes at the end of the film that made my Ghostbusters nerd heart very happy, but were also a little cheesy, if I'm being perfectly honest. They clearly had the mindset they wanted to make a sequel.
There was a ghost Tupac Shakur, which I thought was
yes. I mean, you're not too far off with what happens in that film, but I'm all for a sequel. I would love to see these characters aged up a little bit. It's been several years now since they filmed Ghostbusters Afterlife because of the pandemic. So all the kids in that movie are going to be a little bit older in this sequel. Now that we're back in the firehouse, we're back in New York City. I'm very interested to see what they do with that story. I personally am also very excited for the new cartoon. Go figure. The Pop-O-Holics action boy is excited about a Ghostbusters cartoon on Netflix. I don't know about you guys, but when I was younger, I used to wake up every morning before school to watch Extreme Ghostbusters in the 90s. The real Ghostbusters, I was a little, it missed me by like that much. I was a little too young for it. It came at the tail end of the 80s. But Extreme Ghostbusters, I used to watch religiously every morning. So I'm very interested to see what they do with all these projects. In terms of the animated movie, we'll see. They have one of the creatives from the Hotel Transylvania series on, and I feel like that's a solid match for a Ghostbusters animation, monsters still. So we will see how these projects unfold. Christian, do you have any opinions about all these Ghostbusters releases?
No. I don't like the Ghostbusters. Star Wars.
Oh my God.
Well, I mean, I like the first and the second Ghostbusters. I watched them with Brian growing up, and I thought they were fine. But it felt like
Katie, put it on the box. I'm pro Ghost. Don't bust them.
Let them be free.
That's exactly my stance. No, I think Ghostbusters feels like a bunch of funny dudes were making up a script as they were recording the movie, and because that's what happened. And
it's not as good as the original.
It doesn't feel like it's a universe that I give a shit about. And I've heard good things about Afterlife. I'm sure I'll catch it. Who doesn't love the people's sexiest man alive, Paul Rudd?
He's great in the movie. He's great.
I'm sure
he's one of the strongest parts.
I'm sure he's great. I feel like probably my brother does about Star Wars, about the Ghostbusters series, which is just like, okay, sure. They're making more of them. Okay.
It exists.
It exists. Yeah, I just have no super attachment to those films. Like I think of Brian when I think of those films, it was fun, But we know how I think of Brian, so
hate him.
Yeah, very
dislike
qualified,
him. We keep him around because he delivers excellent news.
He does the show. I can't be bothered to do show notes, so someone's got to be around to do that. But I love you for that, and I love Ghostbusters because it's there.
Brian, how do you feel about this news?
I honestly was not that hot on Afterlife. I thought it was okay. It was a little too fan servicey for me. But without getting into spoilers, I did like some conceptual stuff that they were doing. And the way it paid off was ultimately I don't know. I'm of two minds about it in terms of if the sort of thing should be done even. And that's all I'm going to say.
You were like, they should have brought back Biggie in ghost form. Clearly would have been a bigger
if you're gonna do West Coast, you gotta also do East Coast.
Right.
When you first reviewed Afterlife, I knew about that moment in the film, and we talked about it.
Tupac.
And yeah,
to be clear,
we'll call it Tupac for now. the Tupac thing. And I have to say, when we initially talked about it, I didn't know how it would rub me, how it would affect me when I finally saw the movie. And I actually went in...
Rubbed you the right way?
Based on what, the conversations that we had, Brian, like going in, looking for the fan service. Like, we live in this really difficult time in Hollywood where, like, all of these Lego sequels are coming out. We just had Top Gun come out last week. We're about to talk about the third of a Jurassic Park sequel franchise movie in the next couple of weeks. You had the Star Wars sequels and all this stuff. So, like, it's so hard to make these movies and find a balance between what fans are looking for and making a quality movie. So I went into Afterlife with that mentality where it's like, just find the balance. Like, respect the franchise. I want you to find the balance. I don't want you to be comprised of fan service. Fan service doesn't equate to good storytelling,
And with this one, it's almost like taking the plot from a previous movie and throwing some
very much the first Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
just like The Force Awakens is very much A New Hope.
Yeah.
So I will say that.
Yeah.
But it caught me off guard. Like, seeing what happens in the movie really caught me off guard. And I texted Brian and I was like, I can't help it. It got me. Like,
one man's mid is another man's max, as I always say.
Oh boy. Oh man.
You was waiting for that.
There we go.
Okay. So yeah, that is a animated series, an animated feature, and a sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife that have all been announced. Moving on to some stuff that's coming out this week in TV, we have The Old Man that's premiering on FX this Thursday, the 16th. This is a thriller series that's based on the 2017 novel of the same name by Thomas Perry. It's developed by Jonathan E. Steinberg and Robert Levine, and stars Jeff Bridges as Dan Chase. He's a former CIA operative who has been living off the grid for some time. When an assassin arrives and tries to take him out, the old operative must go on the run. He may meet up with people, and the game is on. Chris, off mic, had talked about how this looks like any of Liam Neeson's.
I heard they originally reached out to Liam Neeson, but he said, I'm just too tired. I need a break.
But then they called Jeff Bridges.
Else.
He was like, hey, man, I could use some money, man.
That's not bad. Yeah. So it looks maybe a bit generic, but I'm here for Jeff Bridges. He's generally doing good things and trying to take a turn as an action hero, maybe late in the game. Kind of here for that as well. So that's The Old Man.
The dude abides. And the dude subsides and arrives with the action. I don't know where I'm going with that. Move on.
So we also have a new show coming to Paramount Plus called Players. So this is produced by CBS Studios in association with Funny or Die and co-created and executive produced by Peabody Award winners Tony Yacenda and Dan Perrault. This is going to be 10 episodes, and the first 3 episodes are coming out on Thursday. This is a documentary-style series about a League of Legends team. A game that I've never played, but I have friends who have played this, as well as Heroes of the Storm, I think is a similar type of game. Are they called MOBAs? Is that the style?
Mobile or multiplayer online battle arena.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's based off the Warcraft 3 game. It's a mod.
Okay.
It actually started as a mod, a modification for those. I know you don't like shorthand, Chris. A modification to the game.
Some shorthand's okay, Christian.
So I thought this looked interesting, kind of very much modern content. Chris, I watched, I think, my first Pokemon tournament the other night.
Subjected Brian to it?
While I was over at your house. No, it was, honestly, I needed you as the commentator to help me to understand what was going on. So it was beneficial. But yeah, I have never really watched these games or watched streamers of these games, but this seems very of the moment and has some good comedic potential. Chris, what did you think of the trailer for Players?
It looks so funny. Like, I initially watching the trailer, because they advertise it as a docu-series instead of like a mockumentary series, which is what it is. It's satire. It's a satire show. It's not real. But in the marketing, I was like, wait a minute. This can't be real. And then we get further into the trailer and things start to get more absurd. And then it's like made by Funny or Die. And I'm like, there's no way in hell they're making a real documentary about esports. So, this looks incredibly ridiculous. I'm definitely going to check it out. I recently got Paramount Plus, as our loyal listeners will know. It just looks really, really funny. How do you feel about it, Brian? Is this something that you're going to check out? Or Christian, you're the video game person on the podcast. Are you interested in looking at this?
Yeah, I think it'd be really funny. I was in proximity to a Microsoft store for some of my work, and they would have, they didn't do a ton of business, so they would have stuff, more community stuff outside their store as time went on, and they did these League of Legends like big tournaments. It was so hilarious to watch all these kids bring their like giant laptops and set up in the middle of a mall. And it's like the most important thing, Chris. We were friends with people that were like obsessed with League of Legends.
We were.
It is rife for being. I think that whole community is hilarious, and it's a very toxic community. They are not. A lot of them are not fun people to be around. So yeah,
and I think the show captures that very well.
Yeah, there's this, I think I've talked on the show about it when talking about other MOBAs. I think when the Pokemon MOBA came out, of like everybody wants to be DPS, and this is a problem in a lot of game genres. Like everybody wants to be the people that kill people. Like go figure.
It's the most entertaining.
Yeah, and it causes a lot of problems when someone's just like feeding a lot, and then you get mad at someone who sucks because them being bad makes the other team harder, and so there's a lot of it's a you suck, you shouldn't be doing that role, and it's not fun to be a casual player in League of Legends. So if they can make light of that and make that humorous, I'd be very, very into that.
Yes, that's Players that'll be out on Paramount Plus, the first 3 episodes this Thursday. Moving into some movies that are coming out. We've talked a good deal about this one already, but Lightyear is finally coming out. So this follows Buzz Lightyear, who embarks on an intergalactic adventure with a group of ambitious recruits and his robot companion. This is the latest Pixar movie, obviously a spinoff from the Toy Story series. We have Chris Evans playing Buzz Lightyear himself. We also have Keke Palmer, Peter Sohn, James Brolin, Taika Waititi, and many more. There's something in the Wikipedia here that I don't think was given away in the trailers that I'm not going to say, but this was written by Jason Headley and Angus MacLean, who also directed it. MacLean did. And I'm going to see this movie at some point, whether it's in theaters or for a movie night with my family.
But he's not going to like it.
I don't know. I'm hopeful. I think the trailers have been okay so far. Conceptually, I don't know if I think it needs to exist, but I'm going to try and take it for what it is.
Is it the fact that it's based on a TV show, a fictional TV show, in a fictional universe?
It's a fictional movie in a fictional universe.
So this was the movie that inspired the toy that's in Toy Story.
In fact, the movie, well, this is not a spoiler. The movie literally opens with a credit saying, in 1995, Andy bought a Buzz Lightyear toy. This is the movie that toy is based on. It literally tells you right up front what this thing is.
Right, where the CG was way better. It's very confusing.
Right, in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Reality.
Yeah, and I remember we debated earlier on the show, was it based off a real person and then I was like, no, we
had our theories.
Yeah. So what's funny about this is that this is the property that inspired the toy that Andy owns.
Correct.
And Toy Story inspired a real cartoon TV show that was about Buzz Lightyear, but that was not in the universe that this is in. It's all very awesome. I love it.
Very complicated.
I watched a TikTok earlier. This is good content, me talking about TikToks I saw, of a person that was like, theoretically in the future, someone will name their son Buzz Lightyear. And he will inevitably become a real like space astronaut. There will be in the real universe a Buzz Lightyear, and then he will achieve things that people will base a movie on. And so
Buzz Lightyear is inspired by
life.
Buzz Aldrin, obviously. So like it's kind of already happened in a way.
TikToker also pointed out that Tim Allen, the original voice of Buzz Lightyear, was on a TV show, a fictional TV show called Tool Time with Tim Taylor in the 90s sitcom Home Improvement. And now Tim Allen is actually going to be doing, with his co-host that he is his partner on that, going to be doing a real Home Improvement show. Called what's
It's
it called?
all cyclical. It's all
real.
a flat circle, dude.
Yeah, and I was reading 'Sapiens
This is a real
by Noah. Some Noah. I talked about it on the show years ago, but I was re-listening to it, and he's talking about how all life is fiction. Like like this podcast isn't a real thing. We make it a real thing by believing in it, but really it's a fiction. And Buzz Lightyear's just a fiction within a fiction, potentially within a fiction. So I think it has legs.
Within the simulation, it might succeed.
That is Buzz Lightyear, the Inception version. We're going deep this Friday.
Next up in the news, Brian, you're going to be talking about Pop-O-Holics, the movie, which this podcast is inspired by.
We got merch. Check the link below.
This podcast is inspired. I'm going to break here on fucking camera. Is inspired by the Pop-O-Holics movie.
That came out after.
That we inspired.
Yeah, exactly. Because of the DeLorean.
Oh, boy. Brian.
Moving on to some
What's
stuff
going
that's going to be available to stream this week. We have Spiderhead coming to Netflix this Friday. This is the latest from director Joseph Kosinski, who just released Top Gun Maverick. That was obviously supposed to come out in 2019, 2020 originally and got pushed back. So his second movie, which follows two inmates who form a connection, second recent movie, two inmates form a connection while grappling with their past in a state-of-the-art penitentiary run by a brilliant visionary who experiments on his subjects with mind-altering drugs. This is written by Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, and it's based on a short story called Escape from Spiderhead by George Saunders and stars Chris Hemsworth, Miles Teller, and Journey Smollett. After seeing, I'm not even going to talk about it in quick hits, but I did see Top Gun Maverick, and I am excited to see it again with my family.
Wait, you're not going to talk about Top Gun Maverick? Come on.
I mean, maybe a little bit. We've got a
we got a
beefy
packed show.
boy tonight, but definitely impressed with what Joseph Kosinski did there. And this movie seems to be really completely different, much smaller and more of kind of a psychological thing than Top Gun. So looking forward to that. And it'll be on Netflix this Friday. So I'm looking forward to checking out Spiderhead. We've also got Cha-Cha Real Smooth coming to Apple TV Plus this Friday. So this follows
This is based off the song, the Cha-Cha Slide, right?
One time now,
Which was inspired by the movie that was based on a novel.
Which was inspired by
written
the Goo Goo Dolls smash hit song, Slide. Everything's a fiction.
Why don't you slide?
Slide real quick now, y'all.
Two hops. So this is written, directed, produced, and co-edited by Cooper Raiff, and follows a young man who works as a bar mitzvah party host who strikes up a friendship with a mother and her autistic daughter. This movie looks like it could be sweet. Doesn't look like, it's a very small story. Potentially got a romantic drama forming here with this story about this guy who's also getting close to someone who maybe has trouble getting close to strangers and new people, especially
Gentiles.
Nothing to do with any of that. But yeah, this is Cha-Cha Real Smooth. It looks like a nice little family drama that'll be on Apple TV Plus this Friday. We also have Good Luck to You, Leo Grande. This follows retired widow Nancy Stokes, who hires a good-looking young sex worker called Leo Grande in the hopes of enjoying a night of pleasure and self-discovery after an unfulfilled married life.
Sexy.
This is directed by Sophie Hyde and written by Katie Brand, and stars Emma Thompson in the lead role as well as Daryl McCormack. This looks like it is. It could lean on its comedic element. There's this, obviously older woman with a younger man, but it looks like something that is kind of going to be this life-affirming, real sort of relationship that's forming sort of thing here. We recently covered Leaving Las Vegas, which is also presumably a very different movie, but also about prostitution in some sense, and how real relationships can develop around this, or connections can be made that you wouldn't necessarily expect from that some people wouldn't necessarily expect from sex work. So yeah. And obviously with Emma Thompson in the lead role, hard to go wrong there. So that is Good Luck to You, Leo Grande. That will be on Hulu.
Now, Brian, I'm a man that is to be wed with an older woman. You find this funny? It's a funny premise to you?
No, I think it's
the difference in age between the two of us and our wives is minimal compared to the difference in age
What's the
being
difference in
portrayed
age?
in this film.
What's the difference in age in this film?
How old is Emma Thompson? Do we know?
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm sure she's probably, I don't know.
I would say at least
30 years older than him.
I would say at least 3 decades. Yeah.
Oh, that's a long time. That is pretty funny.
Well, this is the.
Oh my god.
Guess what? I'm gonna take that back
I'm
now,
saying
y'all.
something that could have been. Look, it's a sex comedy
boy.
drama. It's supposed to be a funny movie on some level.
God, is that
I
so
apologize
weird
for
that
framing it in such
Why
a
is
way.
Emma? Oh God, Emma
There is a trope of
you're talking about,
obviously guys being with much younger women.
You're watching. We're talking about a movie where Emma Thompson's the old person in a. Never mind.
Yes, that is the conceit of this movie. So,
sorry.
No, it's okay.
Let's slide to the left and head on to the next news topic, Brian.
We are moving into something that Chris already has downloaded on his phone.
It's on my Switch, bro. It's on my Switch.
on his Switch, excuse me. This is true. I'm not just making this
legally.
up.
It's
Coming
legally
out this
downloaded.
Thursday. Yes.
We have a disclaimer for when it's legal now.
It just announced. The release date was just announced for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge. So this is coming to Switch, PS4 and 5, PC, and the Xbox Series, and will be available on Game Pass as well. We've talked about this one a bit in the past when it was announced. It is a modern platformer that is a spiritual successor to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game of the 80s and 90s, or the arcade games of the 80s and 90s. Here we have all 4 turtles that you can play as well as Splinter and April O'Neil, as well as Casey Jones. You can play 6 characters at a time, when I think it used to be 4 maximum here. And it seems like there is some sort of power leveling, like very light RPG elements that are going to be incorporated in this as well.
Very much like the Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game. Brian and I have played that. Christian and I have played that. We used to play it in college a lot. And there's a leveling system there where as you level up, you unlock new moves and stuff like that. And the reason being is several of the people from Tribute Games used to work for Ubisoft, who developed Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game. So they have experience in this like beat 'em up genre, which makes it very exciting. I can't wait for this game.
The trailer looked solid. I mean, it definitely threw me back to that old school arcade feel. Christian, is this something you would think about playing?
I'll wait for Chris's verdict. It's a side-scrolling beat 'em up. I'm not sure there's been much innovation in that front besides like Streets of Rage or
which is the same team that made this game.
Yeah. But so it's a skinned, it's a Streets of Rage skin.
As Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, and so Chris
I'm
is
down
very
for
pumped. Hey, I'm happy for you, Chris. Is there a skill tree?
No skill tree to my knowledge.
Yeah.
We'll find out though.
Well, it can burn in hell then.
I know that they have made a lot of improvements. As Brian said, it's a spiritual sequel to both Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, and Turtles in Time. And I texted you guys a couple weeks back saying like everything that I've seen from this game and gameplay has me like super amped to play this game because they've taken a lot of the complaints from those previous 2 games and changed them. For instance, back in the day when you'd play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and you'd go for a pizza, it only healed one of the team members, but now they have party pizzas which heal every single member of the party. So like they've taken...
You know what? I changed my mind, Chris. There's party pizzas?
I mean, day one, buy for you now, right?
Do the turtles have
boobs? No, they don't.
Listen.
But the entire original voice cast for all 4 turtles is coming back to play them again in this video game.
It's exciting. I'm so excited for you, Chris. I'm very happy for you.
I can hear it in your voice how excited you are for me.
Well, I legitimately am. I promise you that I'm not trying to throw one over on you. I am.
I just hope it's cross-platform. That's the only thing I'm not certain about right now. But we'll see when the game gets released. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans or beat 'em up fans, video game fans, rejoice, because I think this is probably going to be one of the best beat 'em up games that has been made to date, outside of being a TMNT game.
Hey, crisscross.
So yeah, that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. That'll be out this Thursday. And it was a big one, but that is it for the news this week, guys.
Thanks, Brian. What a great news section.
We did it.
We did it. You guys didn't notice my last cha-cha slide reference. All right, we're moving on into our favorite part of the show, which is what we've been consuming in the world of pop culture, which is Quick Hits. Quick Hits is that special part of the show where we talk about what we've been consuming in the world of pop culture. Gentlemen, I'm going to take the reins to start off this time. We are going to genuinely try to keep it quick because we got quite a few items on the list. First thing up I want to talk about is Inside the Outtakes. Inside Outtakes, which is available on YouTube, which was made by Bo Burnham, who made the Grammy-winning, my favorite film of last year, Inside. And it is free on YouTube right now to watch. And it's interesting because when you see the title, you're like, okay, there's going to be some goofs, some mess ups, and then you see the runtime, and it's like an hour and a half, and you're like, how is this going to be an hour and a half? And it turns out Bo Burnham has constructed basically a whole new special out of the unused footage, and it's pretty great. You know, watching it, you go, I know why this was on the cutting room floor. I think for a lot of the stuff. There's a couple of things where you're like, this is really good. But Inside was already pretty lengthy at over, I believe it was over 90 minutes for a stand-up special, weird, kind of experimental piece of pandemic art. You can understand why he cut some of the stuff out, and some of it's very obvious. And it really is rehashing a lot of the same themes, definitely on the same like wavelength of what Inside is about. But if you really liked Inside, you're not going to miss with this. If you didn't like Inside, I know this is not changing your mind. It's very much a lot of the same tone as far as radically switching between music videos made by one person inside their tiny little house to like existential dread. Back to Little Bit, back to fake, commercials for stuff. It's a content feast.
It's very much an excellent piece of supplemental content.
Yes.
Tolkien has the appendices. Bo Burnham has Inside Outtakes.
Yes, sure. There's also an accompanying soundtrack, Inside Deluxe Edition, which has both a lot of songs that are not featured here that did not have accompanying music videos. I believe there's brief mentions to some of them if you watch the Outtakes special, and that's a lot of fun too. And the stuff that really got cut is hilarious because some of it is like, oh, this is borderline Lonely Island type humor that I guess just did not make the cut for what he was going for the special. So it makes a lot of sense. I really liked it. I think my favorite detail is that it's on YouTube, and there's a lot of gags that involve YouTube ad placements and recommending engines and little like next ad stuff. It's really clever, and it feels like there was just as much attention and love and care that went into this edit as well as the original special. So if you like Inside, this is definitely a huge recommend. It's a lot of fun, and there's more Bezos songs.
It's a four-parter.
It's
the
gosh,
Bezos was a four-parter. We didn't realize.
And I have been to my little son. I have been singing nothing but the fourth entry, which is like this doo-wop Jeffrey Bezos song.
Yeah,
which is
like
so good.
like a '50s love song.
Yeah, God, he names Jeffrey Bezos by his full name, Jeffrey Preston Bezos. So good, so good. Chris, you also caught this. What did you think?
I don't know if I can put it any more eloquently than you just put it, Christian. I absolutely love this special. And like I said, and like you said, it's an excellent piece of supplementary media to the Inside special. And as Christian mentioned, it disguises itself under the guise of being just outtakes, but it really is a second special. There are some songs that he reprises within the special, but they're also, I would say it must be at least 60% new material within the special that just didn't make it into the original Inside film. But again, it reaffirms how intelligent Bo Burnham is and how layered he is as an artist. And I'm just absolutely here for all of it. The ads that you were talking about, Christian, are so good. They're so funny.
In particular, it's for jeans.
Yes.
He makes not only Levi's jean.
Not only the filmed ads, but the pop-up ads that I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
There were multiple times watching the special where I actually had to rewind and pause just so I could read what the ads are. Because I have to say, I think probably for the first one, I just took it as like a regular YouTube ad and I didn't pay any mind to it. But then when the second one popped up, I was like, wait a minute. You can't click on it. It has his face on it. So then I had to go back and look at that first one. But it's just so much fun and so layered. Obviously, the ICU bit had me fucking.
Oh, I was thinking of you, and I didn't want to spoil
dying.
it. I was like, oh, God, I hope you watch this till the end because it's very funny.
I was dying. And then of course the song "The Chicken" is so ridiculous.
It's a beautiful song
and
too.
It's beautiful, and it's layered,
complex,
and it's
chord progression.
It's an excellent
too.
piece. It's an excellent piece of comedy. It's just so multi-layered. Brian, you still haven't had the opportunity to see the special?
I have not, unfortunately.
We'll talk about it when you check it out because it's absolutely worth checking out. I'm just going to reiterate what Christian said. Like, if you are a fan of Inside, this is a 1000% must watch. Like, when you finish with our episode today, immediately jump over to Bo Burnham's YouTube channel and watch Inside Outtakes. And also, I've been listening to the album almost every day. He writes catchy songs. What can I say?
Dude, the Joe Biden bop. I played that for a bunch of coworkers, and they were like, "Oh, this is kind of hard." And they're like, "What the fuck is happening right now?"
You're really gonna make me vote for Joe Biden?
Yeah, it's a good time.
Randomly, my wife and I will walk around the house, and I'm gonna back away from my mic here, but we'll walk around the house and be like, "Spider!"
Yeah.
It's very good. Everyone should go watch it. Brian has no idea what Christian and I are talking about.
It's
okay. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it so much. You're hyping me up for it a little bit.
So that's Inside Outtakes. Huge recommend. Another thing that I was able to catch, I really wanted to see this in theaters, and actually when me and my fiance, it was before my son was born, we're like, well, we have like a weekend free, and I had shown her the trailer for this movie. We were like, we're going to go see it. It was already out of theaters because it had kind of a segmented release, so it was kind of like not in wide audience, then in wide audience, and disappeared. And that is Paul Thomas Anderson's new flick, Licorice Pizza, which Brian, I think you caught, right?
Oh yeah, I saw this twice actually.
Yeah, and I can't wait to watch it again. I did purchase it on video on demand, so I'm excited to jump back in. But you know, I love Paul Thomas Anderson because he's the one director that I'm like, oh, one of my favorite directors. I have never loved one of his movies the first time I watched it, and Licorice Pizza is no different. Did not love it, loved parts of it, and can't wait to go back. And really from listening to some commentary, like, oh, that's okay. I can see the correlation between what this movie's about because it really is kind of meandering, kind of a series of events that happens that you don't really get the full picture until you have some time to think about it. And that's Paul Thomas Anderson at his best. I don't know if this will ever be close to my top of his work, especially compared to like There Will Be Blood and The Master. Those are just great, but this was a lot more lighter and jauntier. From what I noticed, there is a lot of serious stuff that comes up, but it really is, the closest thing to like a rom-com that this director is ever going to make. And it's very interesting to see a Paul Thomas Anderson rom-com happening because it's weird. And at a certain point, it is easy to make fun of because this movie, there is, and it's such a motif of the film, and it really plays into kind of the end. But I will say that a good, no lie, 10% of this movie, 15 even, is just people running around in the 70s, tracking shots of people running, passing cars that look like the 70s, passing shops that look like the 70s. And
sounds great.
And just remind you that Paul Thomas Anderson, even making smaller indie films, has a really good budget, because you're like, this is a very long tracking shot, and this is a lot of pristine cars from the 60s and 70s that are here, and nothing I'm seeing in view from this unblocked shot is unbroken. And just to back up, the movie is really about a young precocious young boy who's very got his hots on an older woman, is trying to court her, and they start a friendship and kind of have an on and off relationship throughout the years of him growing up. And it's interesting because he is a very our main protagonist, male character, is a very precocious businessman who's always coming up with new business ideas. And it's always funny that he's on the trends. And it's fun to see those stages. At a certain point, I was like, what is there's not a whole lot happening as far as like meaningful plot. But I think that it cast a lot of context on ultimately what the film's about, which I'm not going to spoil. I think you should just watch it. About relationships and power dynamics and male figures and how they behave and stuff. And all that stuff I think is working, especially in context. I do know there was some controversy around how there's a scene with an Asian lady, a couple scenes. And it's interesting because watching it, it's like, oh, I get the joke. And the joke, to me, from my perspective, is, oh, this person's a buffoon. It's a person, just to spoil a little bit of it. If you don't want anything spoiled from this movie, skip past. But a character does a very offensive Asian accent, like a very mocking accent. And, the joke for me immediately off the jump was, oh, that person's a buffoon. But some people found it offensive, and I found it very useful to go back and listen to some commentary around that. Nothing that bothered it for me, but I'm also not an Asian American, so I can understand my perspective being totally different from that. I will have to shout out, I did not look at the cast beforehand, and then I kept going like, that person looks like that famous person, and that person looks like that famous person, and to realize that this movie was made from children of very famous people. You've got Spielberg's daughter in here, the main character. I was looking at him like, this looks like a young Seymour.
It's Philip Seymour Hoffman's son.
I know, and I was like looking at him like, there's something about this kid that I'm reminding myself of a very doughy character actor.
Did they use AI to put a young Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Yeah, so it's Cooper Hoffman. Alana Haim, who I don't know what her prevalence is in Hollywood, but her whole family's in it.
Her mother was Paul Thomas Anderson's teacher at some point during childhood.
Interesting.
And
wow.
so he's done some music videos for them and is like kind of close with their family at this point.
Okay. There's a lot of like familial relationships throughout. There is if this movie is worth nothing if to see it for a Tom Waits Sean Penn scene that is top tier.
Incredible.
It's so crazy. I mean, it feels like the scene is catching fire as it goes, as far as how ridiculous it keeps getting. And it plays really well between what those characters are doing and what our main characters are going through. And that's kind of like the peak of hilarity. And it's interesting to see Paul Thomas Anderson, from having so many very serious films, go to this. Johnny Greenwood credited as the composer. I don't know any. It's a lot of needle drops. So I'm actually interested to go back and see what was actually composed, because nothing stuck out to me from there besides maybe a couple of points. So maybe one of Greenwood's weaker scores, but also I don't think he was demanded to write a ton of material, because it is very much...
I want to say it's like 25-30 minutes of composed music or something for this.
Very understated. I think it works, but nothing that stood out. And that's okay. It's okay that a score doesn't stand out like it is. The needle drops clearly put you in the era. But Brian, briefly, you said you saw this again. So, any thoughts? Where does this rank in your, Paul Thomas Anderson films?
It's kind of hard to rank. I think I agree that something like The Master just conceptually is so up my alley that it may be hard to beat. But I was able to see this actually on 70 millimeter the second time. And I think the movie looks incredible. And like you said, it's the kind of movie that you just fall into, and watching it again, it's not a short movie, but it flies by, and it's just so easy to hang out with these characters. I think the comedy, the two scenes that you mentioned, I think I totally understand why people would be offended by that, especially if it seems like the audience is laughing not at the character, but with him. So in the scenes ultimately in a movie that doesn't have much plot are pretty unnecessary. I don't think they're really adding that much to what the movie is trying to say.
Well, we could go. We
could talk about that with spoilers, because
it seems like it is,
but
and it was disappointing that so many people found it upsetting, because I was like, it's so absurd that, I was laughing at the character and going back and like, oh, this is what the controversy was. It was interesting because I'm like, oh, it to me, it like reinforces the themes, and it is very silly. But I also get the side that people would be. It's certainly like a lot of these things you could take out, because I think it's a series of vignettes about the main point. And I do think that the scene is reinforcing a lot of what's going on in the film.
Yeah, but I think it shows that Paul Thomas Anderson can seemingly with ease just make these breezy ensemble movies that just move and that are super easy to watch. The scene had surprisingly one of my favorite action set pieces of the year that I'm not going to give away here, that comes in the middle of the movie. It's just like, okay, here's this now.
With
not super showy, but a lot of fun.
Insanely scary, almost horror territory.
Right?
Bradley Cooper. It's like,
oh my God, yes.
Yeah, seemingly out of nowhere. Yeah.
But yeah, this movie, it's great. Definitely check it out if you haven't. I had a lot of fun with it, and I think the comedy even more so on the second time. It's a really, really consistently hilarious movie.
Yeah, I was halfway through watching it with my fiance, and she did ultimately really like the flick. But at one point she goes, "What the fuck is this movie about?" Like, she looked at me and goes, "Where is this going?" And I think that is a trait of Paul Thomas Anderson on a whole. Of you don't, and that's what I appreciate. I think that's what us film lovers love about it, because there's no predicting the script, and it's not until afterwards you're like, oh, okay, this is kind of the overall gist of it. I think it's another thumbs up for Paul Thomas Anderson, and a very interesting play. I still have not watched all the Phantom Thread. I think I watched the opening like 20 minutes, and I was like, I'm not vibing with this movie right now, and I literally stopped it. Yeah. Which is crazy. I know everybody loves that movie, but I remember I was just like, I'm not in the mood for this right now. So I was glad that I was able to get through this one, but I'll have to revisit Phantom Thread. I do love, dude, I've listened to some of the pieces from Johnny Greenwood several times.
Masterful score on that.
Love the music. Have not vibed with the movie yet, but just got to get in the right set and setting,
I'm interested to see when you come back to it, because you mentioned power dynamics, and that movie is very much about power dynamics as well. And it seems like something that PTA is kind of interested in. All of his movies have kind of been about that, but specifically with men and women here in the last couple. But yeah.
All right, so that's Licorice Pizza. I say check it, especially if you're a big Paul Thomas Anderson fan. Chris, moving on to you. You've seen a couple things, one of which I was able to check out too. Let's start with Stranger Things. Not something I've seen. I know Brian's seen a little bit of it, but the latest season 4, we talked about it in Brian's news section. This was they dropped all
on that a couple weeks ago. Dropped all at once.
Yep. Have you've made you've made it through the whole volume 1? Yeah, classic.
Have indeed.
He-Man situation here.
Yeah, it's, the interesting thing about this is that it's broken up in a very odd way, mostly due to behind-the-scene production issues. The VFX for the last 2 episodes of the show were not completed when it was released. So the first 7 episodes were released in Volume 1, and then we'll be getting the last 2 episodes, Episode 8 and 9, in Volume 2 on July 1st, once they finish the VFX for it. But For those that are unaware, Stranger Things is one of the most popular shows Netflix has made. We're now in season 4. It's all the same actors. The show's created by the Duffer Brothers. And I really enjoyed the first volume of season 4 of Stranger Things. The cast has been kind of split apart, so we're seeing interesting groupings and new dynamics and how these characters kind of interact with one another. That's actually one of the most fun parts about the show. Every season they find a way to mix and match characters, and it really adds to kind of like the relationships and the world building, and it makes everybody within the show feel more real, which I really dig. But this season in particular is really leaning into the horror elements that the show has always exhibited, but much, much more. It's very much an homage to It and Nightmare on Elm Street and Hellraiser. Our new villain, Vecna, great monster design, kind of infiltrates people's minds and shows them... I didn't want to spoil that, but yes, he is.
I'm sorry.
Look out for Robert Englund in the show somewhere. I'm not going to say where he is. It's a great cameo, and it absolutely adds to like what the show is doing to pay respect to Nightmare on Elm Street, which I really, really dig. But Vecna is very much, like I said, a Freddy Krueger type character. He infiltrates people's minds and then uses their fear and their guilt to kind of manipulate them. And that's as much as I will say. But I have to be honest, guys, I think this is my favorite season of Stranger Things since the original season. And I've liked all the seasons, but the world building that they're doing in this season, all the performances are very, very strong. These children have aged up. They're becoming more professional actors. I mean, they were good when they were younger, but you can see that they are starting to build their craft and really they're doing an excellent job. So Brian and I are going to talk about the entire season once Volume 2 comes out and he has the opportunity to watch the entire thing. We'll go a little more in depth. But I know this is ridiculous to say, but if you haven't already seen season 4 of Stranger Things and you're a fan of the show, I highly recommend going to watch it. The weird thing about the Netflix releases is that like the discussion really only lasts for a weekend. So I know we're kind of really late to talk about Stranger Things 4, but I found that I think that's okay considering that the season's not over yet. But I texted the boys when I first started watching this. I was like, this season's a beefy boy. Each episode is like an hour 15. Some are like an hour 40, almost 2 hours long. And I was like, my MO is to kind of binge all of Stranger Things in like 2 or 3 days. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it with this season. Cut to 2 days later where I'm like, I finished it. It's just it's so gripping. The writers on Stranger Things do such a great job of kind of manipulating you and using those cliffhangers to just make you jump right into the next thing. It's literally like the perfect Netflix show. It's exactly what Netflix wants in terms of viewership and like keeping people there just streaming shit constantly. But the quality's there, and I think that's the strongest part about the show. Christian, you gave up on season 1, yeah?
I watched some of season 2, but
okay.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
The world building that they're doing in season 4, you guys know I'm a sucker for lore and world building, and especially when it's done well. I had such a great time with what they're doing in this season. My wife watched the first 3 episodes of season 1. She found it to be too creepy. And then I was like, I'm going to rewatch the show. I really think there's a lot here that you're going to like. Because it does a great job of riding that line of like action, adventure, horror, you know? It's kind of this Spielbergian, Amblin-esque type of show. And my wife and I are actually rewatching the whole thing. We're in the middle of season 2 now. So by the time the end, volume 2 of season 4 comes out, hopefully we'll be caught up. But yeah, great stuff. Exactly what I expected.
Yeah, I'll definitely talk about it more once I finish. I've watched the first 4 episodes at this point. I'm watching it with my sister.
Have you seen all of episode 4?
Yes. Yeah,
what are
definitely.
your opinions of the first 4 episodes, Brian? I would like to know.
I'm having a great time so far. I think episode 4 was the strongest of the first 4 for me, for sure. Some really great performances, but obviously kind of, well, I'm not going to say who we're focusing on, but we have some standout performances from I don't want to say too much. Lucas is going through a phase. He's hanging out with a different crowd at this point, and this is some of the tension. There's tension that's built around these relationships that I think is some of the scarier stuff that we've actually seen in the show. That's not really supernatural.
Like we've always said, when it comes to like the Stephen King-esque type of writing that Stranger Things does, the human characters are always more terrifying than the actual monsters that they're battling. So I completely agree with you.
Right. And yeah, definitely in episode 4, Max is kind of coming to the forefront and dealing with everything that she's gone through. We have incredible music that's used, and skyrocketed a great song back to the charts with Kate Bush. Yeah, I'm having a great time. I can't wait to finish the volume 1.
Awesome. That's season 4 of Stranger Things, volume 1, streaming on Netflix now. Chris, you and I both had the chance to catch the first episode.
Brian did too.
Oh, Brian is amazing. We all caught, it just premiered yesterday as of this recording, maybe a few days ago as of now, so check it out. But the premiere of Miss Marvel, Disney Plus's latest Marvel TV show. Chris, it's on your quick hits list, so what did you think of the first episode of Miss Marvel?
Just 1 second before you get going.
Yeah.
For those who aren't watching, I think Chris just did a full rotation or a half rotation in his chair.
No, he did. No,
a bit of a 180, would you say?
It did a 180 there. Just please continue, though.
So for those that didn't catch last week's weekly upload, I said that I'm not as excited about Miss Marvel. I'm going to watch it. I'm a fan of the MCU, but it's not something that was like on the top of my priority list.
You said MCU, blah, 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 blah.
That's not what those didn't come out of my mouth. Words didn't come out of my mouth.
They didn't come out of my words.
They
come out of them words. They did not.
So Miss Marvel is created by Bisha K. Ali. She's also responsible for writing the Lamentus episode of Loki. For those, so she's familiar with the MCU already.
Momentous.
It stars Aman Vellani, Matt Lintz, Yasmin Fletcher, Zenobia Scroff, and Mohan Kapoor, as well as many others. And this is a coming-of-age kind of Disney Channel-esque story about a young Pakistani-American girl who gains superpowers, and it's about her kind of finding this balance between her culture and her family life and school and these new powers that she's acquired. And it's a lot of fun. The show is a lot of fun. It knows exactly what it's going to be. Last week, I said that I don't think that I'm necessarily like the target demographic for this particular show. I've aged out of the Disney Channel-esque shows, but that's okay. There's still so much to love within the show. The set design and the way they utilize animation over what they're shooting is a lot of fun. It kind of reminds me of like what they used to do with Lizzie McGuire. I said that last week. But I'm really pleased with what they've done with the episode. It's currently the highest rated MCU show on Rotten Tomatoes with like a 95% from critics, which I think is great. And Aman Vellani, the actress that plays Kamala Khan, literally is this person. I was joking with you guys that I don't think she needs to do a ton of acting because she is a living and breathing manifestation of Kamala Khan from the comic books. For those that are unaware, Kamala Khan, prior to gaining her superpowers, is basically an Avengers superfan. She is absolutely obsessed with everything that surrounds the Avengers. And Aman Vellani in many interviews has talked about how she's grown up with the MCU and has a huge crush on Robert Downey Jr. and is like very active on MCU Reddit forums. And she's essentially as obsessed as Kamala is within the comic book universe. So she was born to play Kamala Khan, in my opinion. And I think she's absolutely the strongest part of this show so far. So again, while I'm not the target demographic for the show, there's a lot of fun to be had within this television show. My wife's really enjoying it as well. I think she can find a lot to relate to. I'm definitely going to keep watching. What about you guys? How do you feel about it?
Brian?
I was very surprised by this show. The animation style, you briefly mentioned it, but Lizzie McGuire was kind of like cutaway scenes a lot. This is very integrated and just things happening constantly.
A lot of like daydreaming.
Also,
in
just
real
to back
time.
up, Chris, watch an old episode of Lizzie McGuire. This show is very different than the original.
I'm sure. I'm just using that as like a cheap Disney Channel reference point.
I think it's a little demeaning to what this show's doing, but
I apologize.
I'll share my thoughts
apologize.
more, Brian. Continue.
But I really love just stylistically everything that's happening. They do a lot of really comic booky stuff with the framing and cinematography, as well as on top of the animation that's integrated with things. A lot of things that you blink and you'll miss them, sort of things that are happening in different parts of the screen. But yeah, similarly, I wasn't sure if, we're not really necessarily the target demographic for this, but I thought the show was really funny. Iman Vellani was great consistently. I thought the family dynamic was really strong as well here.
Very genuine.
Very, very genuine. We get kind of a bit of a heartbreaking moment with, just family dynamic stuff that I thought was working really well. And it felt real. And I'm interested to see how they explain the powers, or if there's anything more to what we've seen here. It looks a little bit like samey. I know they've changed things from the history of, or the origin of her in the comics. I guess she was formerly an Inhuman, and it looks like there's a little bit more of her powers are coming from a different source here this time. So I'm interested to see where they go, but definitely optimistic with the tone and how great I thought this show was for the most part. Episode 1, really sold me.
This might be a little bit of a spoiler, but I'm just gonna say this because I don't have a better way to describe it. Her powers are, it looks like they're going in the direction of
Green Lantern?
Pakistani Black Panther. It's very similar to how they describe the origins of Black Panther. I don't think the show is going to be as good as this first episode on a whole. I don't think there's any way. There's so much budget in this first show. I mean, the camera work that's happening is so dynamic and frenetic. And some of the shots they're getting, I'm like, they have they're either using a drone that they're rotating, or they're using a crane with a gimbal that they're flipping. I mean, there's so much movement, like 360. Not everything in the show is working. I'm gonna echo all the hype about it. I think this is the best episode of any show they put out from a entertainment Marvel standpoint of like, let's get going with the plot. I think this is very similar to the Spider-Man Homecoming story. It's a very similar one. I think there's more in here than that. I think there's more stuff with the family. I think there's more stuff with Kamala Khan as a character that I'll go on a limb and say that this is leagues beyond, as a pilot episode, leagues beyond what Spider-Man Homecoming is doing. And I'm going to say you are the target demographic, Chris, because it's the same vibe. It just happens to be a young girl, right? I think some of this, like, I was really afraid that the writing would be bad, and I was afraid this would get panned, but clearly not the case. The writing's really good. I think they kind of save it towards the end, but there's a character, a young teenage girl. She's a young teenage white girl who isn't impressed with a part of her culture. And part of that felt disingenuous because I was like, most Jersey high schooler is going to be like, cool, that's great. Like that seemed disingenuous to how our youth is. Like, I really do think a lot of our youth, white or otherwise, is interested in other people's culture. So that felt a little trite and felt like it didn't feel natural. Like, even if she was against it, it was this level of like, you're either going to find some psychopath that's like, oh, gross. Like, I honestly don't like other cultures, or they're gonna be like, oh, that's interesting. I don't think this middle ground of like, I just don't get it. Like, I was like, that's not a real thing that exists in our culture right now, at least to me. I don't know a lot of teenage girls, but it felt disingenuous and trite. But I think the show ultimately saves it towards the end. That was the only weird thing that bothered me. I was like, I've been on TikTok. These kids are cool. I don't know. It felt like a weird slant against some members of the younger community, or like, I'm pretty sure most people would be
TikTok personalities are not representative of real world.
But I was like, I think I don't know. There's part of me that like thinks that you get two reactions with kids. This is a dichotomy. It's not real. We're not binary people. But she sees her name. She goes, oh, it's my name in Arabic, and instead of going like I'm against other cultures, or oh, that's really cool, she goes something like, I'm confused. It's just a weird beat to me that I didn't feel genuine for whatever reason. Anyway, that's a small nitpick. It's really it, and I think that it kind of fixes some of that towards the end of the episode. These Disney Plus shows, though, they constantly will have really great opening episodes and then peter out. So I'm already setting my expectations that, like, I think this is a pretty perfect pilot, so I'm not sure that they can maintain this frenetic storytelling for this amount, just depending on how they manage the budget. It seemed like a lot of this budget went into this first episode, but it's written really well. It feels genuine. The actress, repeat her name, playing Kamala Khan.
Aman Vellani.
Dude, some of the best performances in the MCU, especially from a young lady. Like, she is amazing. If you were to tell me that she wasn't an actor before this, I'm like, I don't believe you. I straight up don't believe you. You said not a lot of acting to be this person. I saw her. You sent the Fallon clip. She's on Fallon. She's very fun. She's like nervous as all heck. She's a very different person in this, and she's playing a lot of nuanced parts of it. She has to be all sorts of different things. I think she's excellent. Clearly, like, one of the strongest parts of the show is her performance. I don't know about her nerdy friend. That's a little weird. I don't know. It feels like don't worry, there's a guy, there's a little boy in there too. So
I think that might be the most Disney Channel-esque part of the whole show.
I think she called him Gordo. I think she called him Gordo at one point.
Giving her like a friend-zoned male best friend that like is clearly in love with her, but like that it'll never. It I don't know. It feels a little outdated to me, to be perfectly honest. But
yeah, and there's a particular, I get to say this now as a parent. There's particular scenes that you just see differently as a parent, where like I was genuinely so sad during one moment of a parent interaction where. As a kid, I probably would have been on her side, and as an adult, parent, I was like, that breaks my fucking heart so hard.
Yeah.
But the show is definitely playing both those things. I had a lot of fun. I texted you right after I finished it and said that was a damn good episode, because I do believe it was. So I'm excited for what we'll see. I'm still keeping my expectations, relatively made. But I do find it interesting, Chris, that you're like, I'm not the demographic. I'm like, it's pretty much Spider-Man Homecoming. It's not much more maturity. It's not much more different than what we see in Spider-Man Homecoming as far as the humor and the pace and what the character's going through.
I do want to add one thing, and I'm saying this as we're recording, and it's a thought that literally just popped into my head, so I don't know how dangerous this is going to be. But I'm super excited for the Marvels now, because just like Robin kind of lightens Bruce Wayne and Batman, I'm really excited to see the dynamic between Kamala Khan and Carol Danvers now, because from everything we've seen of Captain Marvel in her solo movie and in Endgame, she's kind of a very stoic individual. I'm very excited to see how Kamala kind of softens her. And I'm wondering if that is something that's going to happen. So
definitely going to make it
when
better. And I couldn't help. This is not with this movie, but not with the show, but the entire time I was like, don't meet your idols. You don't want to see that movie, that Miss Marvel movie. It's not, or Captain Marvel movie. I was like, she's not that interesting of a person, I promise you. She's fundamentally a way more interesting character than Captain Marvel is. So I agree that her being involved with Captain Marvel will only make that better, because she's doesn't have much more of a personality other than she's a woman, which is fine. But
oh my God.
Did you see the movie?
We saw it together in theaters.
Yeah. I think the entire soundtrack reminded us that she was in fact a woman and a superhero, and we should be very excited for just the fact that she is a woman. And how progressive is Marvel that they finally, after 500 films, made a movie about a woman. And guess what, Chris? She's a woman, and
she is indeed
a superhero.
She is indeed.
Yeah.
That's why I said I hope this conversation didn't take us in dangerous directions.
Oh, was that the
Brian's
dangerous
just
direction?
Quietly sitting there.
No. I'll say this.
I have time for Captain Marvel. I like what it's doing conceptually. I feel like I'm a little less harsh on that movie than
I like. Go figure. I like all the world building that movie's doing for the MCU. The space stuff is great.
Potential spoiler for a thing I won't talk. There is another Captain Marvel in the multiverses of things that could happen. More interesting than Carol Danvers. Anyway, moving on. That is Miss Marvel. It is available on Disney Plus. All of us dudes say. Way better than you think it's going to be. I think calling it Lizzie McGuire. You need to rewatch Lizzie McGuire. Can you just rewatch like 20 seconds of the first episode and then go like,
really don't
oh, I
want
was
to.
wrong. I'm so sorry. That was these shows are nothing like. All right, Brian. Sorry, we saved you for last. We're running really long, but don't let that stop you. I want you to tell you.
I'm gonna be short and sweet.
Make
tonight.
it quick, but make it hit. Batman Unburied, which is the new narrative podcast on Spotify.
Yes, so this is a Spotify exclusive. It's created by David S. Goyer and stars Winston Duke as Bruce Wayne / Batman. I don't want to say too much about deep into the plot of this. The series starts with Bruce Wayne seemingly not knowing or being Batman. His parents are alive. His father's played by Lance Reddick. And throughout the course of the show, it takes probably about halfway through the season until we get Batman voice. But we do get there. And
How is Winston Duke's Batman voice?
I think it's great. I think his Bruce Wayne voice is very different. He's very soft spoken and thoughtful, and then he gets into this breathy. It feels a little bit Bale, but there's a cadence to the way he speaks that's totally different than Bruce Wayne. That seems very intentional and makes sense with trying to hide who he is while he's in the Batman role. Hassan Minhaj was cast as Edward Nygma, the Riddler. I think it's an incredible piece of casting. He's one of the standouts for me, and he does get involved in some capacity. I'm not going to talk about someone else who shows up a bit later. The main villain that the show starts off with is a serial killer who is stealing people's organs. So Bruce Wayne is a forensic pathologist who is examining these patients and trying to solve the mystery of what's happening. And throughout the course of the show, it kind of turns into almost like a Barbara Gordon detective story to some degree for a period of time, which I appreciated, and is very much a psychological thriller mystery story. It gets very dark at times, which, Batman tends to be that way often. But there are kind of callbacks to the Adam West style of Batman with a show within a show that they have that's a lot of fun. All of the Foley work is incredible. The production value is clearly there. All of the music is really great as well. And it's 10 episodes. They run about 20 to 30 minutes. So it's probably 4.5 to 5 hours of content total. And as I'm into this sort of thing, I really liked both seasons of the Wolverine podcast that had been made previously. And I was looking forward to this one. And I think it stands up there with the quality of that. So if you like narrative podcasts, if you're into Batman, you're definitely going to find stuff to like here. I think everyone's doing a great job on this one.
Very cool. That is Batman Unburied, which is available on Spotify. You can also find us on Spotify. So if you link that platform, we're there too. Hey.
Leave us a review.
You were also, Brian, you lit some candles the other night, and you started playing some...
I bought some bubble bath.
A bath bomb, I believe, as you said it. You had a poster of
yes, that's right.
Everybody's favorite superhero, Carol Danvers, on the wall, and you were in The Mood for Love, which is streaming on HBO Max.
Yes. So after watching and falling in love with Everything Everywhere All at Once, and kind of reading and listening to interviews about this movie, there is one of the multiverses in that movie is kind of the Wong Kar-wai inspired universe, who is a director who I had never seen anything from, acclaimed director. And 4 of his movies from the 90s are on HBO Max. So after having seen this, loving that portion of the movie, I wanted to go back, realize that there's a shot that's probably a direct reference in Everything Everywhere All at Once. This movie is written, produced, and directed by Wong Kar-wai and stars Tony Leung and Maggie Cheung as our leads, who play a man and a woman who are both married, not to each other, and live in the they're renting rooms in houses that are next to each other, kind of like multiple bedroom apartments that they're renting rooms at next to each other. And both their spouses are constantly traveling and very often not at home. And early on in this movie, they come to the realization we never see their spouses. So we only see our two main characters, at least not directly. And they come to realize that their spouses are cheating on them with each other. And because of this, they decide to, partially as trying to figure out how something like this could have developed, but also because they enjoy each other's company, and start a pseudo professional relationship of some sort. At some point, they start kind of having their own non-sexual affair, where they often will play act as each other's spouses to see how things could have happened or how they think that they happened, and then correcting each other like, oh, my wife wouldn't say that, or my husband wouldn't say that. And sometimes you don't know if they're talking to their actual spouse or not. So there's a lot of kind of, it reminded me of kind of things that are done in Persona at times. It often will go into these musical interludes. It comes back to this beautifully scored piece of music and just gives us vibes, seeing characters walking around in different environments. Just gorgeous. It's not a long movie, but it's very slow burn and kind of just this beautiful story about infidelity, what it does to you and how it affects you, and how you try and come to terms with it, and maybe see even more than you thought how easy it is to fall into infidelity, given certain circumstances, or if people are clicking. So it's a bit of a bummer, but I think it's kind of like beautifully tragic in some ways, and really poignant, and just a really interesting take on this sort of story of infidelity. So yeah, beautifully shot as well, and all the staging and everything is just, it's a gorgeous movie.
That is In the Mood for Love on HBO Max. A great follow-up to Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is streaming on VOD, which I've purchased, and I'm very excited to watch. I was going to catch it the other night, but stuff came up. So hopefully I'll be able to catch it by the time we record next, so I can share my opinions. And I'm glad that you shouted In the Mood for Love, a movie that inspired the director Daniel Kwan, right? His name? Is that right?
That's one of the directors of,
the Daniels. Yeah. I thought you were going to reference Swiss Army Man, which was their smash hit music.
I have yet to see that, unfortunately.
Dude, the music was done by Andy Hall from Manchester Orchestra, and as one of the main collaborators. Absolutely a part of why that movie is really awesome for me. Love that musical person. All right, we're running super long, Chris. All right, your segment's getting cut. We have our Throwback Thursday, which is going to feature mega quick hits, which was our first episode back from my leave when I was traveling to California, and I
in 2020.
2020. This is going to be.
This might be the beginning of the pandemic talk.
Should be February 2020, so it's right as the pandemic's starting. So if you want to jump the time machine there. We have our polls, which we will have one by the time we do our Jurassic World Dominion.
We have an active poll. Well, as of this recording, we have an active poll. By the time you see this, the poll will most likely be concluded, but we'll be going over the results on next week's episode.
And you can vote for those polls on Twitter, our Facebook, our Instagram, all linked in the show notes, so follow us there if you're interested. You can also email us, again, at Pop-O-Holicscast@gmail.com, rate us 5 stars. Email us there at Pop-O-Holicscast@gmail.com. We will read listener feedback and mail, so we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. We are doing all in reference to Jurassic World Dominion. We are doing Jurassic June, in which we are going over all of the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World movies, except for the first one, because we already did a commentary, which you can check out on YouTube and our podcast feed for that film. But this week, we are talking some Jurassic World. We're getting into the Legacy sequels territory, and man, it is going to be a spicy convo. We're just about to have it and record it, so that's going to be on Wednesday, so check that out. And then Fallen Kingdom, followed by our review a little bit later, after a few weeks, so you have plenty of time to see it, of Jurassic World Dominion. Gentlemen, where can people find more of your work on the internet?
Loyal listeners and viewers, you can find me on Twitter at Chris Conkling, talking about all things nerdy.
And you can find me at True Pop-O-Holic.
You can find my band at Midnight Satire. Gentlemen, our music video just premiered that y'all helped me with. Our Pop-O-Holics Midnight Satire collab. Not So Serious Man. It's on YouTube.
Brian gets to punch you several times. I get to punch you once.
I get punched several times, stabbed, hit in the face with a pie. So if you don't like me, this is the thing to watch. Watch me go through a bunch of abuse on film. A lot of fun to do. I'll put a link to that in our video description and our podcast show notes. All right, gentlemen, I can't wait to talk about Jurassic World with you on Wednesday's episode and for the rest of Jurassic June, and see you on the next weekly upload. All that and more on...